Hey guys, thanks so much for joining me, Kristin and on the So She Did podcast. Today, I am joined by Victoria Sexton, financial coach, and we are going to be talking about something that I am extremely excited to talk about. This is one of the reasons that I started the podcast, because I want to talk about money. I think that it is something in our society that we shy away from talking about. And I will put it out there since I was in my 20s. I have been making six figures. So I've always been comfortable and confident talking about money, but I know that it's not normal. And I grew up in a household where that was not the norm. And I want to take that stigma away. I want women to be able to talk about money with their friends, with their families, with their financial coaches and advisors, because when we as women have money and we have control of our money, we have more confidence. And before starting the show today, I did a little bit of research, and it's 2021. Women are still making 79 cents on the dollar. White women are still making 79 cents on the dollar for every dollar that a man makes. Black women are only making 62 cents on the dollar for every dollar that a man makes in this country. Women pay more for their debt, so they have higher interest rates. They're less likely to be investors, despite the fact that all of the research shows that women are actually better investors and usually make more return on their investment than men do. And these are things that we should become comfortable talking about, again, with financial coaches like Victoria, with our friends, with our family, in groups of like-minded women, because when we have control of our finances, we have better control of our lives. And whether we like it or not, money does equate power in this society. And more than that, it gives us freedom. It gives us the freedom to choose the job that we want. And when we're unhappy, to leave that job. It gives us freedom to choose the relationship that we want. And if we're unhappy, to leave that relationship, to come and go as we please, to live the life that we want to live. So with that being said, I think this is a really important topic. I am excited to have Victoria on the show with us today. Hi, Victoria.
Hi. As you can tell, I was nodding along with everything that you were saying. I couldn't agree more.
Yes. So before we dig into this, tell us a little bit about your story and how you became a financial coach.
Yeah. So I have kind of an interesting background because I've always been a really nerdy person. Okay. And I know that you have a corporate background. So I worked corporate America for a really long time. But even before then, so my dad was a financial consultant. My mother was a mathematician. Of course, I was going to do something really nerdy, right? So when I was a teenager, my dad taught me how to invest in the stock market. Because wow. I think that he didn't know how to have a girl, right? Wow. He was like, I'm not going to take you on the father-daughter dance, but let's read the Wall Street Journal together. Yeah. And it ended up to be really interesting because I got to college and I was like, you girls don't day trade?
Well, good job, Dad, because that's what we should be talking to our daughters about ourselves now.
That's right. But it was interesting to me because I realized when I got to college, I was like, oh, dang, not everybody had this experience. And the only people who are doing the same thing, who are talking about investing and have a brokerage account at my age are the dudes, the nerdy dudes, right? So I spent a long time in corporate America, and actually I was a financial advisor up until the pandemic. And what happened was I just, like many people, a light bulb went off in my head. So March of 2020, my phone would not stop ringing. And it was all women who needed support. And they weren't asking me to help them invest. There were questions like, hey, should I sell my vacation house? Or, hey, I was planning on leaving my husband. Can I still do that financially? Really deep questions. And I just said to myself, I think this other thing over here is what I should be doing because it's serving women. It's with their money, but in a different way. And I could do that on a deeper level being my own boss.
I want to go back a little bit to the beginning. So in the beginning, you said you thought your dad didn't know how to have a girl, so he taught you about investing. And then you get to college and it's the guys, it's the men that are learning about accounting and investing. Why do you think women have not been as involved in that?
That's such a great question. I think a lot of it has to do with two things. One, the verbiage, and two, the mansplaining.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we don't want to be mansplained to. Historically, women are better investors than men. And all these studies have shown on average, we get a 0.5% more return in our portfolios per year than men.
Wow.
And that's compounding every year, right?
Yeah.
So we are better investors than men. And I have a hypothesis for that. But I just think that, one, a lot of parents in America don't talk with their kids. Mm-hmm. Two, and they don't talk to their kids specifically about money. And then two, the number of people who actually invest in the stock market is not very high. I mean, some of the statistics I've seen are 60% of men invest. This is including your company 401k and all of that. So the number of people who are regular traders, who have an extra brokerage account, who are making some fun money that way is not actually a really big number. Yeah. However, during the pandemic, what we saw was A, there are more women investing. Yay, us.
Yeah.
And B, like more people are seeing, hey, I can get these big returns. Maybe I dip my toe in the water and start the investing process. So
right. I think a lot of people think of investing as gambling. Do you think that investing is gambling? How is it different?
That's a great question. I think it's gambling if you want it to be gambling. And here's why I say that. So there's a lot that goes into investing, and I'm actually starting an investing class this weekend, and it's 6 weeks. And the reason it's so long is because there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. You need to look at your risk tolerance, how long you want to have your money in there for, what kind of return you're looking for. For people who are long-term serious investors, they're more likely to purchase an index fund and be like, I'm going to check on it next year. For people who are looking to get rich quick, they're probably going to buy something that is really volatile or a company that's not been around for a long time, not really stable, hoping to get these huge returns when in fact it's not a really great investment because you don't know if that company is going to make it or not. So it ends up to be speculative in the long run.
I think a lot of times the day trading aspect of it is speculative. You see all of these very active groups and they collectively buy one stock so they can collectively sell it. And so I think that for some women, there's this perception that there's high risk, but there are safer ways to invest and to make intelligent decisions about your money. So I'm so glad that you're offering a class for people who don't even know the language very often. And to your point, we don't talk about it in our families even. Growing up, I had no idea how much my family made. And my children do now know how much money I make. It took me a long time to tell them and to talk about it. And I think that having an older child has helped because he just went to college and we have to talk about, he has to fill out the FAFSA, the financial aid application, regardless of whether or not he receives any aid. It's something that you complete when you go to college. And so we talked about that and we do have discussions about money. But I think for those of us who are parents, the message is your children are not going to be comfortable talking about money unless you're comfortable talking about money. And for me, the only conversation that I had growing up was, you can have that on payday. I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that payday was the day that there was money in the bank. Every other day there wasn't. And so we knew every other Friday was payday because that's when we would get to go to the store and go shopping. No idea how much money in the family, anybody in the family made. No idea about 401ks. None of that type of financial education happened until I became an adult and was handed a form at an employer. How much do you want to contribute? I don't know. And so I think that we're doing a better job now in high schools. There are some classes, but ultimately that has to come from us. And if you don't know, I think our listeners need to find somebody like you who can teach, who can explain, this is what those things are. So when women come to you for help and for coaching, what are the common problems that they come to you with?
There's a couple of different scenarios. So one group in particular, there are women who are really awesome in what they do. They make really good money. They have no idea what to do with it. Mm-hmm. And so for women like that, it's more on the strategy end. Like, how do you want to spend your money? How much do you want to save? Like in terms of, we'll talk about planning and that sort of thing. And then there's another group of women that I work with where they're finding that they're having a hard time getting over, it's like Groundhog Day. They keep having the same issue over and over again. And that's more of a mindset and habit thing that we talk about. And it's a little bit more, on the woo-woo side, a little bit more touchy-feely, but I find that like if you combine the woo with the really concrete numbers, there's something really magical about that combination that really helps people solidify not only these financial concepts, but okay, how's this going to fit into my life? It's not just, check the box. We have 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses. My money has to work for me. It has to be a tool.
And you mentioned the woo-woo. There's this idea that women are more emotional. Do our emotions tie into our financial decisions and our spending habits? Talk to me about that, because I'm guilty of, I've had a bad day. I'm going shopping to make myself feel better. Those kinds of things. So talk to me about that experience that you've had with some of the people you've worked with or that you've personally experienced.
So I feel like, I'll give you a couple of statistics to start out with. Okay. So out of all of the money that women have, 70% of that money is held in cash. Mm-hmm. So, and I was really surprised to hear that. So the remainder is what is being in the market, in real estate, elsewhere, right? So that's the first thing, is that I think is really fascinating, is women are holding a lot of their money in cash. And my hypothesis is that if you have a little bit of fear in relation to your money, holding cash makes you feel good, right?
Yeah,
exactly. But the problem with cash is with inflation, with the price of, like, you have kids, with the price of groceries going up the way it is, we need our money to make money for us. Mm-hmm. And so even though we find safety and security in cash, it's actually not doing anything for us in the long run. Mm-hmm. I also think, and I don't know if I told you that. Okay, you'll figure that out. But I have a theory why women are better investors than men.
Okay.
And I call it the hold my beer theory.
Okay.
So have you heard of the phrase hold my beer?
Yes.
Okay. So a guy goes, hey dude, hold my beer. And then he does something dumb, like skateboards off the roof.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
Right. So I have a feeling the same thing happens with the stock market. It's like, hey man, hold my beer. I'm going to buy this thing and it's going to go crazy. And then in the meantime, women are sticking to like their blue chip stocks, like their S&P 500 index. And then they end up making higher returns because they're, again, less speculative. They're picking things that are less risky.
Yeah, because I do think there is a predisposition for men to want to take bigger risks. And we tend to be concerned with not only today and getting that big return, right? But also our future. And I think that ties into why we hold on to cash for security. I have enough money to pay my bills today, but I'm afraid I won't have it tomorrow. So I'm just going to keep this right here just in case I need it.
Right.
And I think that, we are biologically wired to make sure that our families are cared for. We've got that hunter-gatherer, right? The guy's the hunter. He's going out there and he's going to jump on the bison. And we're thinking, you know what? I'm just going to hang back here and gather up some nuts and some grapes real quick for everybody and so that at least I know we've got something.
Right. Absolutely.
I think there's a biological element to that too, that works for us, but it can also work against us. So do you ever have clients who are almost too risk averse? They won't invest in anything. And if so, what advice do you give somebody who says, I would love to invest, but honestly, my savings account only has a few months in it. And I'm just not comfortable doing that. What should I do?
The first thing I would tell that person is you need to look at it like you're investing in you.
Mm-hmm,
so I'm going to pay myself. People talk about paying yourself. You're going to pay yourself because the me who is 5 years, 10 years down the road, the future version of me, she's going to thank me for the decisions I'm making today. And that's how I look at it a lot of the times, is like, what decisions do I need to make today that I'm going to make my life easier down the road?
Yes, I love that. I love the idea of guaranteeing or working toward having a better future for yourself. And I like that. What is the me of tomorrow? What does she want me to do today so that I can be there and be happier and be secure tomorrow? Because all of us, I think, have made bad decisions at some point financially in our lives, right? We got a credit card that we shouldn't have gotten. We, did things like that. And I think that when we look back on those experiences, we have the opportunity to learn from them and say, I don't want to do that again because I want tomorrow to be like this. And I have personal friends who have been in and out of credit repair for 20 years, it seems like. And, they get their credit back in line and they go get credit cards and they run them up again because they don't address that. Let me prepare for a better future. They're truly living in today. So I talked a little bit about credit cards. Tell me, what are the big mistakes that you see people making in regards to credit cards, women in particular?
Women shame themselves a lot in relation to credit card debt. So I think that that's one of the worst things that you can do to yourself. You cannot turn into some financial badass if you're making yourself feel bad every day about where you are. Mm-hmm. So I feel like, again, credit cards are a tool. There's going to be times in your life when, maybe something comes up and that month you can't afford to put groceries on your debit card. Maybe you're going to have to use a credit card. Yeah. Don't make yourself feel awful about it. The key is then thinking about, okay, how do I make my future decisions better? Yes. Right? How do I make better choices so I don't put myself in that situation again? Yes. And I'm just not a big fan of shaming people into behaving responsibly with their money, because I just don't think it happens. I think that's why people end up in a cycle, like you were saying with your friend who has done credit repair a couple times. I think you just end up in this cycle where it's like, okay, I'm a good person because I didn't use my credit card. And it's like, well, it has really nothing to do with that. We need to make better choices and learn from our mistakes.
Yes. And I like that, making sure that we separate our financial decisions from our worth as individuals, or we separate our financial status from our worth as individuals. Because as I talked about in the beginning of this show, I do think that socially, we think people who have more money are better, and people who have less money are not as good. And that's not a fair assessment of people's worth. And so, can we have better habits? For sure. But does that make us better or worse? Does that affect or change who we are? Absolutely not. It's just a number in the account. Now, one thing that I loved when I talked to you the first time, I asked you, what about the person? And there are a lot of people out there listening to this who are truly living paycheck to paycheck. Just like my family did growing up. I said, we knew when payday was. We also knew when the bill hadn't been paid, because there would be a sticker on the door, your water's going to get cut off, those kinds of things. And I knew they were juggling, do we pay the electric bill? Do we pay the water bill this month? Which one's going to get cut off first? So those people that truly live like that, paycheck to paycheck, I love the answer that you gave me when we first talked. So can you tell our listeners what that was and what to do about it?
Gosh, I hope I can remember the answer I gave you. But so when you're in a pickle,
it was 3 words.
It was 3 words.
Make
Oh, make more money.
Make more money. That's
Make
what you
more
said.
money. Yes.
Make more money.
Make more money, honey.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if I shared this example with you. So for about 5 years, my husband and I lived in Seattle, and we bought this house. It ended up to be a total money pit.
Oh,
So he and I were both working full time, had full-time corporate careers. We were making really good money. And it's like payday was Thursday and Friday, like this is what it got to finally when it was really bad. Friday, we'd be out of cash.
Yeah.
And we had to kind of regroup and go, what in the world is happening? And we followed the money and realized that the house that was falling apart, that all of a sudden needed a new roof or a new sewer line or a new this or a new that, was actually bleeding us dry. Yeah. And for me, the answer was never clip more coupons. I could not clip $10,000 worth of coupons for a new roof, right? I needed more money, and I needed more money fast. And so I think that some people get hung up on this because they think, oh, it's bad if I want more money. No, I don't believe in that. I think that you get to choose what you want in this life. And that includes how much money is in your pocket, right? Yeah. So when you're in a pickle like that, you have two options. One, you cut your expenses, again, clip coupons, or two, you increase your income. And for me, it just became so much easier to increase my income. And so we started, I inherited a bunch of stuff from my mom and my grandma, a bunch of antiques. So I started selling those. I sold them on eBay and Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that. Yeah. And the extra cash did two things. One, energetically, I felt like I was doing something spectacular. Okay. Yeah. It was like selling teacups and stuff on Facebook Marketplace. I felt like I was awesome. Right.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing, is it kind of switched up the energy from like panicking, oh no, what I'm going to do, to I have a plan. And the second thing is it made things feel a little bit easier in terms of the actual cash that we had. So I would say for someone who is right now, you're in a pickle, you're trying to figure out how to get out of it. Again, don't be afraid to say, okay, I'm going to make more money. Maybe what that looks like to you is you work at Starbucks every Saturday.
Yeah.
Or maybe what that looks like to you is you go and you sign up on the Rover app and you walk someone's dog, every night. What a great way to get exercise, right? Like we're going to get creative here and come up with ways to make more money so that, again, you're feeling better about your financial situation and you see a way out, which I feel like is really important.
Yes.
And then the amount of money that's actually coming into your pocket is increasing.
Yes. And what I love about the idea of that is you are putting yourself in control of it. I am going to make more money because, let's face it, sometimes our expenses are not going to decrease. The cost of a mortgage, the cost of a rent, the cost of electricity, the cost of gasoline. If you look at people who have been, paycheck to paycheck, gasoline, when the price of gas goes up, that they need that transportation to get to and from work, it does severely impact their budget. So rather than saying, I'm going to reduce my expenses, which if you can, that's great. Why not try to make more money? And, I never want to hear a financial expert again say to me, not to me, but just in general, you hear this all the time. Well, how much is that one cup of coffee a day? How much is that one?
So sick of that.
Just stop it. And stop assuming that we as women are just spending our money on our coffee and getting our nails and our hair done. Just stop it, because there's so much more to women than that. And I think that rather than saying 1 cup of Starbucks a day, no, how about if we teach women, you are capable of earning more. You are worth more than the paycheck that you've got. Why don't you go to your boss and ask for a raise? Why don't you, if you're not going to get one at your current workplace, find another place that will find your value? And then when you're offered that position, negotiate your worth. Why don't you get a second job? Why don't you start a side hustle? Why don't you, to your point, sell something, build something, create something? We don't have to limit ourselves to 9 to 5. And this idea that that's all that we can do, I think, is false. And I will tell you, being a mother of 3, working in the corporate world, doing a podcast after hours, working on finishing my doctorate, doing all of those things, I'm not one who's very sympathetic to, well, I just can't do it because I don't have time. If you want to be in control of your finances, if you want to make more money, I hope the listeners hear this, then you have to put in the work to do it. And you can, you are capable, you are able. And if you make that a priority, you'll be blown away at what you're capable of. And when I look back at my 20-year-old self and I think about all of the hours and all of the work and school and training, I am so grateful to her for doing that. And I hope that when I'm 60, 70, 80, I look back on my 40-year-old self now, and I am so grateful to me for doing what I did to put myself in that position. And so I think that putting ourselves back in control of our situation, motivating ourselves, let's get out there, let's take control of our money, let's take control of our finances, let's take control of our today and our tomorrow, puts us in a place where we truly can make a difference in our own lives, our children's lives. And then we've got extra so we can contribute to the causes around us that are important,
Absolutely.
And I think that's how we build, and that's how we give back, and that's how we make things better for other people and other women and, minorities and those causes that are special to us, so they can do that too.
Absolutely. When women have access to more money, it improves the lives of everyone around them. Because, think about who we take care of. We take care of our family, we take care of our friends, we take care of our community. And it's a real trickle down effect. I hate saying that because it has to, trickle down economics reminds me of that. But it is a trickle down effect, because when you have access to more money, then you're less stressed. You can contribute more to your community, right? You can help out somebody else who may need a little bit of help.
Yeah. And, part of this, wanting to have this conversation on the show, started for me when I have a 6-year-old son, and he asked me, what are 3 wishes? Where did that come from? And I asked the robot in my house, I don't want to say her name right now because she'll start talking to us. But I asked the robot in my house, tell me about 3 wishes. And she just pulled up some random internet page and said, according to such and such, reference.com, I think, 3 wishes, ... And she started rambling off all of these facts. And one of the things that she said, and here I am, the successful corporate single mom with my own house, living my own life. She said that men are more likely to wish for success than women are. And women are more likely to wish for the well-being of the people that are close to them or health than they are for wealth. And so I think that in this conversation, I hope that changes. I hope that women hear you can be successful. And that doesn't mean you have to pull your heart out of it. When you're successful, you're better able to give back. So my hope is the next generation, the women, when they say, when they're little kids, what are your 3 wishes? They wish for success. They wish for prosperity. And they don't feel like doing so is selfish, because it's not. It truly does help everybody around them. And there's nothing wrong with helping yourself and making a better life for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So where do we start today? Where do women start right now? Somebody says, you know what, I want to get my finances in order. What do I do, Victoria? Tell me, what's the first step I need to take?
You can't ignore your money. You need to pay attention to what's going in and coming out. And when I start to have this conversation with people, I could tell that they die inside a little bit.
Yeah.
But the thing is, technology is fantastic. And for most banks, they have some type of a system where it shows you already your expenses versus your income. And my favorite bank, it categorizes it for me. Yeah. I don't have to do any math. I see it right there. So the first thing is you need to start by having an understanding of what's going in and what's coming out. And that's just the lay of the land.
Yeah.
And then we can't be afraid to do the really badass moves, like learning to invest.
Yes. Yes.
Like buying a piece of investment property.
Yes.
Right. by deciding, okay, I want 2 more revenue streams. Maybe, I'm going to, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to get residuals, or I'm like, whatever the situation is.
Yes.
I would love for women to be a little bit more bold in this area because of all the reasons that we just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay if we want more money, and it is 100% okay if you also want to include some fun things in your budget.
Of course.
I really think that, like you're just talking about Starbucks.
Yeah.
I really think that Starbucks, that yoga, that your Botox or whatever you're going to get, that's like your prerogative.
Yeah.
That is self-care.
Yes.
Right. And I think we need to stop looking at these purchases as frivolous, because that's a really male way to look at our finances.
Yes.
And if for you, self-care means I'm going to get a blowout on Friday, right? Every Friday morning, I'm going to go get a blowout, going to go to the salon, whatever. If that makes you feel like the best version of you so that you can go out and really do amazing things in the world, you need to include that in your budget and then be unapologetic about it.
I love that. And this is why I love having you on the show today, because I think it's something that women need to hear. When you read financial books or you hear, these experts out there talking to you, very often they say, well, your $50 blowout times 52 weeks a year is this much money if you had invested that. But you know what? I'm an investment too. I'm an investment in myself, and maybe getting my blowout makes me feel like I can conquer the world. And in fact, I then make more money as a result of it because I have the freedom to do that, because I feel confident enough to do that. And so I'm glad you said that. And I also believe that we talk a lot about how much the money will be worth in the future. And there's certainly a valid reason to do that. And we'll talk a little bit about that long-term planning. We absolutely should do that, but not at the expense of living our lives. I think that we still have to enjoy the money that we have today. And to your point, if that means I want to go on vacation with my girlfriends for my 40th birthday, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to beat myself up about, well, if I had invested that $3,000 in this account, it could have been worth 50, 20 years from now, because those memories and that life experience is worth something too.
Yeah. I mean, life is short. Life is short. If we learned anything since 2020, right? Life is short. And I would love for women to be a little bit more unapologetic about their buying choices, but then conversely, like the flip side of the coin is then also make sure that they're taking care of themselves as well.
Yes.
Right. They're doing that paying themselves thing, and they have money in long-term savings, maybe some fun money in short-term savings, and then be unapologetic about the rest of it.
Yeah. So how do you know if you can really afford something?
I think it goes back to looking at your income versus your expenses. Oh, and this is so boring to say it like this, but there's 2 types of purchases. I think there's one that's more on the investment side. And that's when I think that if you are a woman and you're in that job where you feel like there's no upward movement for you, you can't get a really hefty pay raise, you feel like you're worth more, you need to invest in yourself to get qualified for this other job here that you want, right? Agreed. That to me is an investment in yourself. And interestingly enough, I think that when we make the decision that we're going to invest in ourselves in that way, we sometimes just find a way to make it happen. Like we find the money.
We do.
Like it wasn't there before, but it magically happened, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there's those types of purchases. And then there's also, I buy 12 pairs of shoes in a month where you could probably pare back, right? So that takes a little bit of introspection. And I'll share with you real quick. I went through kind of a compulsive shopping phase when my mom died. Mm-hmm. And it was a very dark time for me, and shopping made me feel better.
Yeah.
And I really had to say, like, I don't even like half these shoes and I'm returning them. So why am I exhibiting this behavior? Mm-hmm. So I think there's that too, that it's like, what do we really want? That question, what do we really want, needs to be at the forefront of a lot of our decisions going on in our life. And if that means that you buy one pair of shoes in a month rather than four, so you can make that what you really want happen, I think that's important.
So one thing that's helped me a lot is I have a commitment to myself that I won't impulse buy. And so here's a really good example. I travel a lot. I love to travel. And I went to a local store and I saw this gorgeous leather bag. Okay. I was walking through the store. It was one of those moments that you see in the movies. The bag called to me. I went to the bag. The bag was $465. But I have a commitment to myself that I will not make an impulse buy. So what I told myself was, I'm going to leave. And if in 2 weeks I still want the bag, I will come back and get it. Every day for the next 2 weeks, I thought about that bag. I woke up and I thought about that bag. I went on a trip and I thought, I wish I had that bag. And I came back 2 weeks later, I went in the store and I bought that bag. And the reason that I enjoy it, because I made myself wait for it. I made myself feel that it was something I really wanted in my life. So when I make those expensive, purchases like that, and I know a $465 bag isn't that expensive. It's not a Louis Vuitton, but $500 for a little handbag is quite a bit. So I like to surround myself with things that are meaningful, with things that I want. And I'm willing to spend money on nice things as long as I'm intentional about the decision. I'm intentional about why I selected that piece of furniture, that handbag, that pair of shoes. And I try to even be very intentional about my clothes. I go when I'm looking for something specific. Even if my specific is just, I need 5 outfits for work, I'm going specifically to look for those things. And I give myself permission to spend what I want on them rather than, I happen to be at the mall with the kids. Oh, I like this. I'll buy this. No, because I'll never wear it. It'll stay in my closet with the tags on it. I'll forget about it. But when I go with the intention of buying something, when I wait for something and I don't impulse buy, I like my life better because I'm surrounded by things that I want in my life, as opposed to things that I just kind of picked up along the way. Does that make sense?
I love that. It's like you pre-Marie Kondo'd your closet.
Kind of, yes.
Yeah, it's like you already found joy in it.
Kondo in the books because she would not approve of my book collection. So
if they spark joy,
it's funny. One of these books on the shelf behind me is hers, which, the irony of that. She said you should get rid of books too, but that's not going to happen for me. So we talked about how we know we can afford things. We talked about where to start today. Let's talk about that long-term piece. The long-term, we do all need to look forward and see, how are we going to retire? How are we going to take care of ourselves in old age? How are we going to put our kids through college? What are the long-term considerations that you're dealing with your coaching clients?
The first thing that I look at with my clients is what's already available to you in terms of long-term planning, because, I can help my client like set up an IRA. We can do all of that. A lot of times we're leaving money on the table because, like, you had the example of not exactly knowing what the 401k was. Rather than ask a question, a lot of times women just won't opt in and they're losing out on the benefit of that 401k matching. So I like to look at what is already available to you. So what kind of free money is going on, like the 401k matching? I have a relative who remains nameless, who I had to tell them, like, you have a defined benefit plan. This is really good. You need to opt into this. And he was in the company for like 5 years. And he was like, I don't know. I haven't opted in. And I'm like, you're losing money. You're leaving money on the table. This is what you need to do. So I think that it starts with looking at what's already available to you. And then also taking a look at your scenario. There's kind of a balance between your individual scenario, what exactly you want for the future, and what are your really big dreams, like your big bucket list dreams. Like, I want to buy a house in Italy.
Yes.
I want to have a villa in Italy. I don't know when this is happening. It's on the list. It's going to happen.
When it happens, I'm coming to visit. Just
okay. I make sure that the guest house is available. Right. So this is one of the big dreams that I have.
Yes.
And I think that when you think of financial planning, a lot of times people discount those because maybe they're silly, or maybe your financial planner wouldn't really understand why you would want this to do this thing. We can't forget about those big dreams.
I love that.
So I think we need to incorporate them into your financial plan somewhere. So even if my financial plan, even if in reality I don't end up owning a house and I end up doing a VRBO once a year, which I would totally be cool with too, right? Like, it's still in the neighborhood of my dream. So I think that we need to incorporate all of those things together. It can be hard to mentally separate out money that's for right now, money that's for like 10 years from now, and money that's for like 20 plus years from now. So this is why I recommend that you have something written down, and because writing it down, putting it all on paper is really helpful to see, okay, this money is going here, this money is going here, this money is going here. And then just to make it as automatic as you possibly can, because if you're like me, you will forget.
Yes. So when you talk to clients about 401ks, do you always recommend that, assuming they can afford it, they can pay their bills, they are contributing to their 401k at least to the maximum that their employers will match?
Yes.
Yes.
Because the matching is free money, right? The matching is free money. That's a benefit to you that your employer already set up. So I would say, like, I know some people love 401ks, some people hate them. It depends upon your tax situation, really. And that's why I say talk with your tax professional, because at a certain point in time, like if you put away, like let's say you put away $3 million pre-tax, you're going to have to pay out taxes on that when you take it out at retirement.
Yes.
So that's a consideration. So that's why you need to have these conversations with your tax person to figure out what's right for you. But I say the first thing is you don't leave any money on the table, and that you have an understanding of the benefits that are being offered to you and how you can maximize them. Like if you have an HSA that's being offered to you, why not use it?
Agree.
Because again, that's pre-tax money, right? So
pre-tax money. So what do you think about women in home ownership? Because, I know a lot more men who purchase a home while they're single than I do women. They seem to wait until they're coupled up or married before they purchase a home. How do you feel about that? Do you think more women should proactively look to be homeowners?
absolutely. And if we're being honest here, I didn't own a home before I was married. And I think I had a little bit of trepidation about purchasing a home on my own. But that's so silly when I say that out loud, because I was working for a really good company. I've always worked and had good income. So, I was really kind of messing myself up there with my thinking. But I think that real estate can be a really awesome asset for you to have. And especially depending upon where you are in the country. I'm in California. It's like you blink and the value of your house went up by like $10,000.
In Colorado, so the same thing. Yeah. This house that I live in now, I purchased 2 years ago, and I feel like it was the best decision of my life. Values have gone up. It's immediate equity for me. And I love that it's security for myself and for my family. And I think that we talked about women like to have cash because it gives them that sense of security. Home ownership gives you a sense of security. And, I very often hear from my friends and other people that they're afraid to make that big decision. You're much more at risk when you're renting than you are when you're buying. Because if you've got a mortgage, the mortgage company, if something were to happen to you, God forbid, usually has programs to work with you to try to keep you in your home. Whereas if you're renting, your landlord in most states can 30 days you haven't paid.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
gotta notice. And so you do have much more security with home ownership. And then you also start building equity. Rates are incredibly low right now. So you start building equity a lot faster so that if you ever did need to sell, then you can tap into that as well. So I think that, with the help of a financial coach like you, with the help of a good real estate agent and a good mortgage company, talk to those people and make a decision that makes the most sense for you. And it's not right for everybody, but it is right for a lot of people. And I don't want to see women shy away from that because they're waiting to get married. They're waiting for, somebody else to make that decision with them or for them. Ladies, we can make those decisions ourselves and we can build life for ourselves.
Absolutely. I read a study that said that women are much more likely to invest in real estate than the stock market. But what's interesting, I know, right? But the interesting thing is the barrier to entry for real estate is so much higher that I think, like, this is, world according to me, I think that there's a really great opportunity to invest in the stock market, and you could save for your down payment that way, and then move your, that money over to your down payment or however much you're going to put towards the house. I will say too that I know people that live in really nice, fancy schmancy areas, and they don't own a house because they are a little bit afraid of the price tag. You can also buy a home elsewhere and you don't have to live in it. You can rent it out.
Yes.
And this is a great option if you want to start to build that passive income that you get from income property.
Yes.
Of course, the flip side of the coin is being a landlord gets complicated sometimes. So you have to have good resources on that side. But, if I had to go back to my 20s and do one thing differently, that's what I would have done is purchase something maybe in an area that's an okay area, nice area, but maybe not the area I want to live in, and rent it out because I'm still building equity. I still have a home. If something happened, I would need to live there. So there's lots of different options. It's, the traditional, you buy a house, you live in it, whatever. I don't know that it applies to everyone anymore because you can do many different things. Like, you can have a friend live with you. Yeah. And then you have rental income from your friend living with you. There's a lot of different options. But yeah, I love real estate too.
Yeah.
And I think that's another really good option.
I think in my opinion, real estate is always a good investment because historically it always increases in value. Even if you have something like the recession that happened in 2008, all of the values have recovered since then. And so if you look at the historical value of real estate, it's a tangible asset. It's an actual thing that you own. And there's a limited amount of real estate in the world. So there's only so much that you can buy. So it goes up in value. Very rarely do you hear of real estate decreasing in value, unless something has happened and it becomes condemned or, something like that. But that's usually the owner's responsibility. Even if you look at houses that were built, 50 years ago that are in less desirable areas of town. Now, I can promise you those houses are selling for more than they did when they were built by, 100-fold. So I think real estate is always a great investment. I think it provides people with security, but I think everybody's individual situation is different. And so you should definitely talk to a coach, a financial advisor before making those decisions, and then make the decision that's best for you and or your family.
Absolutely.
So before we wrap up, what are, 3 big messages that you have for our listeners today?
The first I would say is, in 2020, a lot of people regrouped, a lot of people pivoted, and many of my clients I'm talking to now are not exactly where they want to be financially because maybe they switched jobs, maybe they started their own business, whatever. It's possible for you to end up where you want to be financially. And it does take a little bit of effort. Like I mentioned, you're investing in yourself. You're learning about your money and where it is, all of the, in terms of how many accounts you have, in terms of what your money is doing for you. It does take a little bit of time, but I would say you can change your financial situation.
Yes.
It is possible.
Yes.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is I just want to say that for women, we should be aware of who we're getting advice from.
Yes.
Okay. So I feel like
no mansplaining. Like
no mansplaining. You mansplain to me, I'm out the door. Right. Mm-hmm. I feel like in financial services, there's a lot of advice that's very masculine, and it's like coming from the, dude perspective. Well, you just do this, right? And sometimes that doesn't work for us as women. Mm-hmm. So I would say, to find a good money mentor, to find a good person that you're paying attention to, that you're reading books from, that podcasts that you're listening to, and get inspiration from those women, because we do business, we do life a little bit different than men do.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. And the message that I want women to hear from today's show is you can take control of your money. You can take control of your finances. You can learn more about it. Even if you're already in a great financial position, you can still improve that. We don't have to be okay with the status quo. We are great leaders. And actually, I mentioned earlier that we're great investors. All of the research shows that women tend to be better leaders also than men do when we're talking about teams. And that starts with leading ourselves, with holding ourselves accountable, with asking the right questions, with being brave enough to have the conversations with our friends. Ask your girlfriends, what are you investing in? Start an investment group yourself where you guys learn about it together. It doesn't have to be you going to the bookstore and buying a bunch of books and trying to teach yourself something. You can learn about this together. You can join a class like the one that Victoria is offering. You can meet with a financial coach who will be open and honest with you, who wants to see you improve and grow. There are so many resources out there, and they're going to be used where they're going to be more valuable when we as women stand up and say, I'm taking control of my finances because I'm taking control of my life. And I want to create a life for myself that's the life that I want to live. And that includes today and tomorrow. And if I made mistakes in the past, that's okay. I learned from them. I'm going to fix it. If I've been successful in the past, that's great. I can build on it. And so I think that when we start having these conversations with ourselves, with our friends, and with our children, we really do put ourselves in a position to help other women, to help future generations, to build wealth, and like I said earlier, to contribute back to our society, and help others as well. So with that being said, Victoria, tell us how the listeners can get in touch with you.
They can reach me on victoriasexton.com, or I'm on social media. So Instagram and Facebook, Victoria Financial Coach. And that's the best place to reach me, is victoriasexton.com. And they can grab I have a free ebook that is a quick read, and it's 6 ways to simplify your money, because we shouldn't make things too complicated for ourselves. So
we shouldn't. And tell me again, when is your class starting? Tell me again.
It's starting Saturday morning.
Okay.
And it goes for 6 weeks, and we get really nerdy and we get into the details of investing, because there's a lot to it. And what I want women to get out of this course is that I want them to have the confidence to invest themselves, or if they still have, that investment guy that they're working with, have the knowledge to have deeper conversations with them to make sure that they're invested in the right things. Right. So this is actually a course that I offer for women, because I know that money is like triggering and weird for people. So I offer this on a private level. So if you have a couple girlfriends and you guys want to learn how to invest, I do that for private groups as well.
Okay, wonderful. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me on the show today. As as you go and you buy that villa in Italy, I look forward to visiting with you. And I hope all of our listeners will reach out to you for more candid conversations, for help with their finances, and that this becomes a sounding board and a place for them to jump off into controlling their own finances and their own life. So thanks so much. And we'll talk to you guys soon.